Today, I'm going to explain an action Jason Statham type movie called Shelter. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens in a lighthouse on a small island of Scotland, where our protagonist, Michael Mason, lives a solitary life away from civilization. He never leaves the island, and each week someone brings him the supplies he needs to survive. The delivery man often sends his little niece Jessie to carry the boxes to the entrance. Jessie often tries to strike up a conversation with Mason and leave him gifts, but he always ignores her and remains shut inside his home. We then see Mason's daily routine, which consists of spending time alone with his loyal dog and playing chess alone. Checkmate. No, fuck you, man. I'll get the checkmate. One day, Jessie arrives to deliver the supplies as usual, while her uncle waits for her by the boat. This time, Jessie calls Mason out for not even bothering to say thank you for all the supplies and small gifts. Mason coldly tells her not to come back again and shuts the door. But the furious girl demands to know what he is doing in such a desolate place, especially since the lighthouse no longer functions. Mason completely disregards her, so a frustrated Jessie storms back toward the boat with her uncle. However, the situation takes a tense turn when the weather shifts violently and a storm of terrifying magnitude erupts. The sea becomes wild, and amid the crashing waves, the small boat capsizes, leaving the girl struggling and sinking into the depths. Moments later, Mason notices the disaster unfolding from his window, and without wasting a second, he immediately rushes outside. He boards his own boat and begins battling against the overwhelming force of the water. After a desperate struggle, he finally reaches Jessie, but discovers that her uncle is not as lucky. Mason pulls the unconscious girl onto his boat, and he helps clear the water from her lungs so she can breathe again. Once they get inside, Mason realizes that Jessie has suffered a serious wound on one of her legs. When Jessie wakes up, she asks about her uncle, but Mason informs her that he has passed away, leaving the little girl devastated. The next morning, Mason examines Jessie's wound, which is quite deep, so he carefully treats it and bandages it as best he can. Jessie becomes restless and insists that she wants to leave because her family is looking for her, but Mason says that he knows her parents have passed away and that her uncle was the only family she had left. The girl is shocked by how much he knows about her, so Mason reveals that her uncle was a close friend of his and that they both served in the Navy together. He then briefly leaves the house, so during his absence, Jessie grabs a nearby knife and keeps it with her for protection. That night, Jessie experiences a nightmare and begins screaming, so Mason rushes to her side to try to calm her down. However, she thinks he's trying to hurt her, so she quickly points her knife at him, but Mason calmly reminds her that he only approached to comfort her, after which he teaches her how to properly hold the knife and how to use it if needed. In the following days, the bond between Mason and Jessie gradually strengthens, and he begins to act as a protective, father-like figure toward her. Jessie also develops a strong affection for Mason's dog and spends her time playing with him, which makes her feel happier. One day, she asks for Mason's name, since she still doesn't know it, but he refuses to tell her. She then asks about his dog's name, but Mason says he doesn't have one, so Jessie decides to name him Jack. Jessie then starts playing chess with Mason and proves to be a tough competitor, which amuses him. Later, Mason notices that Jessie's leg wound is not healing as it should, and the inflammation continues to worsen. She suggests going to the hospital, but Mason strictly refuses for some reason. He then decides to leave the island and travel to the nearest coastal town to buy medical supplies. Once in the town, Mason acts with extreme caution, walking with his face hidden under a cap and avoiding security cameras. The scene then cuts to London, where we see several government officials interrogating a man named Manafort, who used to direct the Secret Service known as MI6. It turns out he is being questioned about his invention called Thea, an artificial intelligence that monitors people through cameras. This AI also has the ability to intercept phone conversations around the world to gather valuable information, raising serious concerns about privacy violations. However, Manafort tries to justify his actions by claiming that the system has helped prevent multiple terrorist attacks. Despite his arguments, the authorities insist that the program must be shut down immediately. Later, Manafort seeks support from the Prime Minister, who admits that the project has been useful, but refuses to publicly back him due to the upcoming elections. She thus suggests that Manafort continue operating the system in secrecy and withdraw from the public spotlight for a while. In another scene, we see Mason going to a store where he buys some new clothes for Jessie. However, while walking down the street, he passes by a group of girls who are recording videos for their social media. Unfortunately, this results in serious consequences, as his face is captured on camera and immediately processed by Thea. The information quickly reaches Roberta, who is the new head of the MI6 intelligence agency. The data manages to track Mason's location and identify him as a terrorist responsible for bombing the British embassy in Algeria. Roberta now immediately orders a special forces team to be sent to the island to capture him. Back on the island, we see Mason carefully finishing bandaging Jesse's leg, after which he gives her new clothes, making her extremely happy. "So least I could do for endangering your life and all. What? Give it a moment, love, you'll see." In the evening, the two share a quiet dinner together when Mason suddenly hears strange noises coming from outside. When he looks out, he is shocked to see several boats carrying armed agents approaching his dock. Mason immediately begins preparing for combat and tells Jesse to hide in the bathroom with a knife before he steps outside. Being a highly cautious man, it turns out that he had already set up hidden defensive measures around the perimeter. As soon as the officers land, he triggers the explosives, causing immediate fatalities among the attackers. The surviving agents attempt to push forward but fall into a series of deadly traps that quickly eliminate many of them. It's like Home Alone, but for blokes. One officer manages to shoot Mason and injure him badly, but our hero continues fighting and manages to overpower his enemies. Meanwhile, one of the agents enters the house and Jack tries to attack him, causing the agent to brutally shoot the dog to death. Jessie, who is hiding in the bathroom, is scared, and soon she is also captured by the agent. He then begins carrying her away from the house, which is quickly noticed by Mason. Despite being injured, he bravely fights and shoots the agent to death, rescuing the girl. Following this, Mason tells Jessie to get on a boat since they need to leave the island immediately. Jessie begins crying and says that they can't leave Jack behind, but Mason tells her that he is already dead. The two then get on the boat to escape. While at the MI6 base, Roberta watches in disbelief as all her agents are killed by a single man. She realizes that she is not facing any ordinary criminal, so she decides to send one of MI6's most skilled operatives, known only as Workman, to take him down. At the same time, she orders her team to find out everything about the little girl, Jessie. They soon approach a farmhouse, so Mason gives Jessie a firearm and provides basic instructions on how to use it. After that, he asks her to stay outside, while he enters the house and begins desperately searching for medicine. Unfortunately, he is soon discovered by a little boy, and moments later, the boy's father also arrives with a gun and demands that Mason leave. However, Jessie then points her gun at the man and begs him to help Mason, who is badly injured. Back at MI6, they listen to a 911 call from a boy from the farmhouse, reporting that there are two intruders in his house. An agent then discovers something shocking. It turns out Mason is not actually a terrorist, and someone deliberately linked his profile with a criminal to incriminate him. Upon further investigation, they find that Mason's real records were erased for some reason. Roberta then realizes that Mason is actually a former elite agent from MI6 itself, but the question is, why is he running from the law? Roberta then orders her team to go and arrest Mason, but instructs them not to kill him since she wants to question him. Elsewhere, Manafort also sends a secret and direct order to Workman, instructing him to eliminate both Mason and the girl without leaving any trace. The scene then returns to the farmhouse, where the family's father finishes treating Mason's wounds. Mason thanks them and prepares to leave. Right when the boy returns to the living room, Mason asks where he's been and quickly realizes that the kid has called the police. Worried, he orders everyone to hide as the police begin surrounding the house, while Roberta watches the entire situation unfold through surveillance cameras and satellite feeds. Soon after, the boy's father steps outside to check what's going on, but is brutally shot and killed by Workman, who is hiding in the distance with a sniper rifle. He even kills a few police officers, and this sparks panic in the area. They soon encounter more police officers, but Mason quickly disarms them and steals a patrol vehicle before speeding away. However, Workman continues pursuing them in another car, while relentlessly firing shots at them. In a dangerous maneuver, Mason suddenly swerves and forces Workman's vehicle off the road, which creates enough distance to escape his sight. In another scene, Roberta calls Manafort and demands to know who Mason is, so he explains how years ago he created a secret operations unit called Black Kite. Mason was his most exceptional agent and a highly trained operative who could accomplish any mission assigned to him. One time, Manafort ordered him to assassinate a foreign official who is considered a public threat. However, Mason refused to follow the order and disappeared, which led Manafort to believe that he had become a traitor. Oh, my wings are here. Next, Manafort warns Roberta that Mason is the most dangerous person in existence, and that he will need the full power of the state to stop him. However, Roberta does not trust his version of events and orders her own investigation. She soon discovers that the alleged foreign official was actually an Iranian scientist who was secretly helping MI6 by providing classified information about Iran's nuclear weapons program. However, instead of protecting the asset, Manafort ordered Mason to kill the scientist to maintain plausible deniability. Mason decided to choose his moral judgment over blind obedience, so he abandoned the mission. Manafort thus viewed Mason's refusal as betrayal and placed him on MI6's high-priority target watch list. Shortly after, they arrive at a small church where they meet Mason's old friend named Arthur, who takes them to his home. It turns out Arthur is a former computer specialist for MI6 who worked with Manafort to help develop Thea. Arthur explains that he was the one who altered Mason's identity, changing it into that of an oil worker from Aberdeen. However, someone later uncovered the truth and replaced that identity with that of a high-value terrorist on the watch list. Mason then realizes that the only way forward is to confront Manafort, so he asks his friends to take care of Jesse, but Arthur refuses, revealing that he is suffering from cancer and has only a few months left to live. Upon hearing this, Mason is devastated, so he decides to contact someone named Kamal to ensure Jesse is escorted safely out of the UK. Arthur strongly objects since Kamal is a known criminal, but Mason insists he has no other choice. They begin preparing to leave in a vehicle when Mason suddenly senses the presence of an intruder who turns out to be none other than Workman. A brutal face-to-face confrontation erupts between the two agents. Both possess the same elite training, but Mason manages to wound his opponent and use the brief distraction to escape with Jesse and Arthur. Not long after, they arrive in town where Mason and Jesse separate from Arthur and go their own ways. Jesse asks Mason why they can't stay together, and he explains that as long as Manafort is alive, she will never be safe by his side. Meanwhile, inside the bar, Mason speaks with Kamal, who is stunned to see the legendary agent alive, as he was presumed dead. Mason then asks him to use his contacts to get Jesse out of the country, provide her with a new identity, and secure enough money for her future. Kamal initially refuses, cause that sounds ridiculous, but Mason blackmails him by revealing that he knows everything about his illegal human trafficking operation at the docks. Oh, this guy sounds perfect to take care of the little girl that you care about, Jason. He threatens to pass all that information to the police with Arthur's help. He also informs Kamal that the authorities have already traced him to this location, giving him no more than 10 minutes to act. Upon hearing this, Kamal finally agrees to help, and shortly after, he returns with a new passport for Jesse, along with 200,000 euros. He then instructs them to go to the docks, where a boat will be waiting to take Jesse to Spain. Earlier, the cops showed up within 10 seconds, but this time, there was enough time for a fake passport stuff. Following this, Mason and Jesse try to leave the club when officers suddenly storm the place and chaos erupts. Workman also arrives at the location and begins violently shooting everyone in sight, even the officers. Mason relentlessly fights back and takes down enemies while desperately trying to protect Jesse. However, in the middle of the gunfire, an officer manages to seize Jesse and forces her into a van. Desperate, Mason contacts Arthur for help, and the latter uses the city's camera network to track the vehicle. Mason then pursues the kidnappers, and after an intense confrontation, manages to kill each of them. He escapes with Jesse on a motorcycle, while Workman continues chasing them closely behind. Shortly after, they manage to reach the docks, where Mason tells Jesse to get on the boat, which will take her to Spain. A tearful Jesse begs him not to abandon her, saying he is the only family she has left in this world. But Mason explains that his world is dangerous and that he cannot drag her into it. So, after an emotional goodbye, he finally sends her away. Afterward, Workman also arrives, and he and Mason engage in a brutal fistfight as they have both run out of bullets. In the end, Mason manages to overpower the younger agent and uses a metal object to fatally strike him, ending Workman's life. The scene then cuts to a few days later when we see Manafort at his residence when, shockingly, Mason appears to confront him. Manafort tries one last act of manipulation and urges him to return to the operation, claiming that together they could achieve great things. Blah blah stereotypical AI wrote this. We're the same, Statham. However, Mason has no interest in trusting such a corrupt man, so he shoots him in the head and instantly ends his life. The scene then cuts to 3 months later, where we see Jessie living a normal life in Spain. She is sitting in a cafeteria while Roberta and her team in London monitor her. They are confident that Mason will eventually visit her and plan to catch him since he's now a wanted fugitive. However, all of a sudden, the camera inside the cafe is readjusted and the team in London can't see anything. Just then, a waiter hands Jessie a small package from an unknown person, and when she opens it, she finds a chess piece inside. Jessie smiles softly, realizing that her friend is alive and watching over her from a distance. The movie ends as we see Mason standing across the street, observing Jessie from afar, so far that there are no cameras over there, with a faint smile on his face.